Welcome everyone. My name is Javi Glatt. I'm the co-founder of CAD Makers and developer of CM Builder. Welcome to the panel on the future productization in the construction industry. Appreciate you all joining. We have an amazing panel today. Super excited to introduce them to the audience. Before we get started, if you do have questions for the panelists, just drop them in the Q&A section, and we're going to try to find some time at the end to make sure we go through them. And yeah, before we start with the introductions, I want to just touch briefly on what CM Builder is and what the goal of this event is. Our product CMBuilder.io is a 100% web-based construction site logistics simulation platform and makes it really easy to simulate construction logistics, share it with people, stakeholders. It's an authoring and viewer tool. That's pretty cool. So check it out if you're interested at CMBuilder.io. The reason we are all here today is to talk about the future of productization in the construction industry. Some of these concepts are not new. Modular construction, prefab, these types of things have been around for quite some time. But we're starting to see kind of an interesting convergence of new ideas and technologies, material science innovation, lowering costs of advanced manufacturing, connected devices, business model innovations, all that kind of stuff, which is creating a whole bunch of new players doing really interesting things, some of which are on this panel. So our goal for today is to spark an interesting and engaging conversation about these shifts in our industry, pick the brains of the trailblazers themselves. The three that are joining us today are on the cutting edge of all this and building the future. So who better to ask than them? And hopefully spark some ideas for future innovations that our industry desperately needs. So that's the goal. First introduction, I'm going to introduce Neil Thielen. Neil Thielen is head of product delivery at Nabr, where he's responsible for systems and supply chains that connect housing demand to construction at scale. Prior to Nabr, Neil was head of construction and innovation at WeWork, where he led a cross-functional business unit and state-of-the-art manufacturing facility for modular interior wall systems. He's a licensed architect from New York, and Neil is also the founder of the PropTech consulting firm, the Thielen Design Group, and has served on faculties at Columbia University, University of Virginia, and his alma mater, University of Michigan. Welcome, Neil. Next, I'm going to introduce everyone and then we'll dive into it. Next is Suresh Haridas. He's currently a technical manager, program manager for product assembly and development solutions at Google. Suresh is a well-rounded executive leader and change agent with proven hands-on experience with AI, cognitive-driven growth strategies, manufacturing operations, supply chain execution, sourcing, and commodity management, amongst other things, for a strong bias for action. Before Google, Suresh worked at places like Propel, NVIDIA, and Flex, among many others. I pulled a few off there, Suresh. Hope you don't mind. Welcome, Suresh. Good to have you. Okay, last but not least, Adam Marshall is the Director of Digital Manufacturing and Engineering at Sidewalk Labs and is responsible for technology strategy, factory automation, industrial engineering, with a background in the aerospace industry, most notably at Boeing. Adam has extensive experience in development and implementation of advanced production systems and technology. And fun fact, we'll start with Adam in the first question. Adam got off the chair this morning with a root canal, so he's playing hurt from us. He's playing hurt today. Hopefully the gas is worn off a little bit, and we don't, you can, yeah, you're clear. How many fingers am I holding up? Just kidding.
No gas. I'm good.
Well, listen, great to have you all. Let's just dive into the reason we're here. Start asking some questions. Adam, let's start with you. You've spent many years working on the advanced in the advanced manufacturing world with Boeing, with your last role being chief engineer and director of production engineering in the metal fabrication department. What are some of the key learnings that you've had with regards to advanced manufacturing techniques and approaches you got from that world, and what, if any, do you think are applicable to what you're building today at Sidewalk Labs?
Yeah, so thanks. I don't know if it was many years. Hopefully not.
I'm not trying to date you.
Thanks for having me today. Yeah, so I'd say like what I found, maybe as a key learning from my previous positions and my experience in aerospace is that design for manufacturing, which is like a real enabler of productization and productivity, is something that is just integral to the design and engineering of the product. It is as a level one engineer coming into a big complicated company, I learned how to help enable the factory to produce the parts that were being designed even at an early stage. And what I've seen as I've started this journey into construction is that they're in the world of architecture and construction, design for manufacturing is something that maybe comes after the design is already done. and it's the addition of data in order to make something manufacturable. And whether one is building with robots or they're building, things by hand, having a full, complete, designed as built set of data and information is the real enabler of any manufacturing process. And so I think that there's definitely a lot to glean from other industries in that respect, and to build that true design for manufacturing approach into the early stages of design and have a clear shared definition of what the design means when it's done.
That's a good answer. I definitely have seen that in my experience, that moving the design, those decisions up the design chain is a hard one in construction, right? These things are used to being Neil knows this as an architect, it's what is it? The joke is that it's build design, not design build in traditional construction. So that's a great insight in that you have to make those decisions early in design. That's fantastic. Next, I'm going to jump to Suresh. So Suresh, you are charged with rethinking the way data centers are designed, manufactured, and installed on site at Google. This is not a small undertaking, I imagine. Can you talk to us? Yeah, can you talk to us a little bit about your background, predominantly being in the software product world, or like that kind of world, and then what are those insights that you kind of bring to this construction industry in the physical world? So DFA, DFM, these types of concepts as well. Maybe you could share a little bit about your experience.
Yeah, no, thanks for the opportunity, Javi, and good to meet you, Adam and Neil, as well. And thanks. I'm glad to be a part of this panel. Most of my background has been really helping companies orchestrate their supply chain, NPI, fairly large-scale transformations. I've been fortunate to be a part of the software industry as well, dabbled in some of that. And what's exciting is taking on the scale at what we're taking on here at Google, and also doing that on a global basis, right? And we're chartered to set up the infrastructure for the next gen of what we are going to be doing here over the next decade or two. And it's a fairly interesting time here at what we're doing. So glad to be here.
Fantastic. Thank you. Neil, let's jump over to you. So your background is a unique one as well, being a head of innovation, construction innovation at WeWork, prior to joining Nabr, and WeWork, despite its challenges, definitely built an amazing team and was really pushing the envelope with regards to productization. How about you? Can you share some of those insights of that experience there at WeWork, and maybe perhaps what you're carrying forward with you today and what you're trying to accomplish with Nabr?
Yeah, I think the narrative around what happened at WeWork is one that we need to bring to the fore in light of all the TV programs that are coming out currently about what the media thinks happened there. I think WeWork, first and foremost, was an incredible collection of people and talent under one roof, something that I had never previously experienced. It was a great opportunity, and I speak in the past tense, there's still people there doing this in a really incredible way, to think about space as a product and how we can organize construction, in thinking about scale and finding efficiencies in that process. I think one of the key things I learned there was, while we try to bring some of the learnings from manufacturing into the construction space, the difference in construction is that it's always an ad hoc team, and you go from one project to the next with a new set of players and a new set of participants. So you don't always have the luxury, or I don't know if it's a luxury, it's just a difference from manufacturing in that you're always kind of reinventing the wheel on every project. So what can we do in construction to find efficiencies? Just today I was speaking with one manufacturer, and we want this manufacturer to utilize somebody else's product in their product so that we can deliver it to a building. And they were talking about what they're calling I don't know what we're going to call it, an integration sort of overhead. Like, in order to make these two things fit together, there's kind of an inefficiency in one person's product and making it meet somebody else's product. And I was thinking about that, and it's kind of a proxy for all of the efficiency in construction, in that we have these different teams that are coming together for each project, and they're not fitting together very well always, right? They're the way somebody operates different than how somebody else operates. And the challenge in a project is to try to make these things fit better together. So, you know, I think building off of what Adam mentioned right off the bat with design for manufacturing is really key. In the difference that I think we're tackling in construction is how to make that work with multi-party contracts, where there's different people involved in every time you do this, right? How do you design for manufacturing when there's different suppliers on every single project? So it's a real challenge, and it's a really key area that we're focusing on right now at Nabr. How do we build a supply chain that's integrated, that can continue to deliver at scale when it's not under one roof, right? It's not one team, it's in fact many teams and a group of people that come together for each successive project to find efficiencies in that way.
I'm going to go right back to you, Neil. Another question. So I've been fortunate to know you for a number of years, and I know that you are quite passionate about this idea of productization of architecture. And as an architect, you know, that manifests itself in traditional construction as like facade and these types of components that you're trying to design and apply advanced technologies to optimize, you know, more traditional construction. You used to have to kind of convince people, you know, in the regular architectural projects to do more of a product approach. Now it's the core part of your strategy. So I'm just curious if you want to talk a little bit about that journey and maybe like how this mentality you think is shifting in our industry going forward, like this idea of, you know, being more ready to build products as opposed to you forcing a square peg in a round hole in the past where you're trying to productize in a non-product based kind of delivery method.
Yeah, well, I mean, our business at Nabr, and you know, I'm not sure, we're a new company, and I'm new in a new company, so I think it's worth talking about what we're up to. We are selling condos direct to consumers at a fundamental level. We have a business model where we're engaging directly with consumers of real estate, and we're building systems and supply chains that can deliver products directly to consumers. That's what sold me on joining this team. I find that very exciting because what it provides is an opportunity to orient all of our partners towards the consumer and the impact that we can have on the consumer. So when we have discussions with potential suppliers, you know, of pre-manufactured building components, we talk about the value to the consumer, not how much we can chip away at people's profit margins or how much we can get this product for cheaper. It's about the value brought through to the consumer and how that benefits the whole ecosystem and allows us to scale as a business model, which is healthy for our whole supply chain. So we talk quite a bit about what I would call total value in trying to find ways that we can orchestrate our supply chain so that everybody's benefiting from providing that better value to the consumer. And we're finding that people are really receptive. Companies are really receptive and excited about thinking about things in that way. You know, and then also thinking about how we can, you know, for example, facades, right? That's sort of the place that we start because facades are almost always made in a factory, at least to some extent for construction. So how can we invest in systems and processes with manufacturers and suppliers that can help us, you know, drive down the inefficiencies in that process and deliver products at scale to our consumers? It's really basic, right? But people are excited about this, right? Because, you know, manufacturing is very cyclical in our industry. You know, factories are not operating at 80% or 90% of their capacity at all times. In fact, it's going up and down, and you're absorbing some of that cyclicality back into the cost of the consumer. So if we can find ways that make sense for manufacturing to work with us, it's a net positive to the whole team, right? So that's kind of the total value approach that we see. Benefits the consumer, benefits Nabr, benefits our supply chain partners. So from a business standpoint, it makes all this stuff make sense, right? When we think about, you know, all of the technology that we've been trying to force down the throat of construction for the last 15 years, working with CAD makers and everybody else, and it's just, you know, it's really hard work and getting people on board with working in a certain way. What we're finding, what's exciting about what we're doing is that orienting ourselves around a product that goes to the consumer makes that a really easy sell. We're finding places where we can find efficiencies with our supply chain that that we haven't before. So that's really exciting about what we're doing right now.
Very cool. I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit more Nabr in a future question, but one thing that really strikes me when you were kind of first telling me about what you're doing is that, we talk about design and we talk about manufacturing, construction, is that business model innovation too, which is really interesting and enabled by obviously technology and everyone connected to the internet and being able to access your consumer directly much easier than you could have 10, 15 years ago, which is really great. So I want to go over to Adam. So let's go on the other side. Let's talk deep hardcore. Let's geek out for a minute on manufacturing stuff, which I know is what you love to do. You have any good technical aerospace manufacturing examples of things that maybe you took for granted in your past life, but maybe as you come into construction and you're building kind of from scratch, is a constraint when we're trying to think about manufacturing building components at scale. So is there any kind of interesting lessons learned there or insights you could share?
Yeah, sure. So, when I started at Sidewalk a little more than a year ago now, I was really focused on just the information flow, like how to get the data that was necessary to build things from the design to the factory. And that, our factory today, we're building components, prototypes and our first projects, and that involves a lot of manual work today as we scale towards our automated future. And what I've, I think I took for granted coming from automotive and aerospace and my background is that I assumed that the design was complete and sufficient for manufacturing when it was given over from the design team. And then I started learning about the start of a new language, things called shop drawings, which I've never heard of before. And then there are construction drawings, and there's all of these derived and recreated sets of data that have to be made for the many different parties, including our factory, to be able to actually build or construct the project. And I think that was a big surprise, if not a shock. And I think that what I've taken from that is that where we're headed at Sidewalk is to drive towards consistency in our product definition, and so that we are able to get to that full defined set of information that is consumable by the people in our factory today, and then in the future by the people and machines that will be in our production system.
That's cool. Dare I say we can get a good meme out of this. So it's like Adam Marshall says, "What are these things called? Shop drawings." I love that. That's hilarious. I mean, and then that's what I think is really interesting about some of the. One thing I've seen is the trailblazers in construction right now. A lot, obviously Neil has an architecture background. You've been in the game for a little while, but we've seen a lot of newcomers come to the construction industry from their from expertise elsewhere, which is really fantastic. You bring a new set of eyes and old problems and stuff like that. But ironically, you run yourself into these traditional things we do, like shop drawings and stuff like that, and doing the same thing 3 times for 3 different kind of stakeholders. Okay, Suresh, let's go over to you. One comment you made when we were preparing for this call, you mentioned the idea of conception to product in 14 weeks in your past life. From requirements doc to an actual product you could use in say 14 weeks. Now your new reality is say 14 months, maybe even longer. What are some major shifts and insights that you're seeing the difference? When you start building like a design of a data center, right? Like are there specific challenges that you see to building data centers versus what types of products you built in the past?
Yeah. So I think where I have come from is like where we have just the high-tech industry where it's a fairly common approach where companies do have to run fast. So agility is the name of the game, right? Which is where the 14 weeks really analogy is applicable, right? What we are dealing with is the sheer scale. One, we're dealing with a lot of heavy capital intensive products, that are getting deployed, semi-custom, I call them bespoke or snowflakes, right? Where we're trying to, make them global fungible products, right? Maybe even modular, right? But the trick is to really see how we can, I think Neil or Adam had talked about this too, is how do we get a lot of these cross-functional stakeholder teams together and to be able to shift left. That's the the analogy we've used, and think a little crazy, right? Like, so when you look at the whole construction landscape, right, there is, I think, a good need for innovation in the space, and I think we can apply some of the lessons from the different industries, be it aerospace, automotive, but there are some uniqueness to the industry as well, which I think we need to acknowledge and respect and make sure how the parties come together much earlier in the game, right? So a lot of things that I have observed over the last 2 years is there's some things that can absolutely be applied for product development, but there are some things that are really unique to the world of construction. And I think we need to, as long as we have a line of sight to that, then I think things, timelines can be shrunk, right? So.
That's a good point. I think some newcomers come into the industry and just say, "Oh, what's wrong? Wait, I can't believe they do things this way." Well, it's hard, right? There's a lot of logical things that happen in construction, especially with regards to managing risk. So I want to kind of go a little deeper. Data centers. I'll go right back to you, Suresh. Data centers, are critical to all of our lives. All of our lives are being lived in the cloud nowadays. GCP obviously growing, I think, the fastest of the major cloud providers. Can you talk a bit about like the pressures of adding data center capacity moving forward? Like, is it do you guys see this as a huge problem? And what are some strategies maybe you're thinking about to go after that problem?
No, yeah, I think it's a huge opportunity, right? I think it's just pretty much, in my view, it's an arms race, right? Like, you have the three players, right? And it's a proven reality where on-prem is dead, right? Everyone's moving to the cloud. Like, if you're not moving to the cloud, you're pretty much, being left behind by your competitors, right? So that's just, the situation, right? And we're not alone. I think all the competition is trying to move. There's a lot of colos as well trying to move as well to grab the some market share in the space, right? I think if you look at the whole situation, there's a huge demand for capacity, right? And if you look at the regions, the metros, right, there is also, but that demand is not linear, like it's volatile, right? It basically goes with that, right? And so that requires the need for an incremental approach to how you add capacity, right? To apply a leaner approach, which is more incremental and agile, right? And so that way you can pop up capacity in a fairly short time frame, right? And address the needs of those customers in those regions or metros, right? So that's something I think is happening, not just with us, but across the board, right? Everyone's trying to see how they can get customers from on-prem. This is a large market, right? And we're participating very actively, I would say, in that. And we're gaining along the way. We're gaining some market share as well. So, and some of this is all public information, but I think it's a very exciting time with what we're dealing with today. So.
No, I appreciate you sharing. I know that when we planned for this, some of the stuff you're doing is quite advanced, and we're not, and maybe not public. So we're trying to keep it in a level we can talk about, but everyone knows. I mean, we experience it, right? Everyone's seeing our product is fully web-based. Everyone's building web-based products, and I don't see that changing, for any time soon. So that's really interesting insight, and I can imagine it's one of the hardest things to plan for, right? Like, you have a physical thing you have to build at scale. You have to scale it up, but you don't want to overscale. And what's the timing of that? It's just truly fascinating, and I know digital is helping you guys a lot with that. So, Adam, I'm going to go over to you again. So, from your perspective, so you focused on productivity, you focused on advanced manufacturing. What do you think is the biggest untapped opportunity to drive productivity in construction now that you've been here for just over a year? Where's the biggest opportunity in your opinion?
Sure. I'll probably sound like I'm on repeat, but I think back to that. This is the concept of design for manufacturing assembly, or design for manufacturing assembly and constructability, whatever label we want to give it. That getting to a true shared definition of what that means, and having it be very much a data-driven process. As an example, one of the the things that we've been doing at Sidewalk is to model our factory operationally to the point where we have a understanding of features in the product definition and down to a very small detail, you know, a understanding of the impact the changes of those features will make in the factory. So for example, the fastener spacing on a bracket, you know, that's something that in the product design timeline, we know that that we can make changes to it within whatever engineering allowances there are. And, you know, we can give data to our design teams to say, you know, an increase in the spacing of these fasteners will give us a 2% improvement in the cycle time to install this part. And we do that before we've ever built anything. We instrument our models and processes with the ability to collect data and use it to make decisions. And that will drive efficiency in the factory. It will drive efficiency at the construction site. It will drive efficiency across all of those business processes. And, you know, so that just focus on data, focus on the process, and, you know, don't try to make the, you know, we're not trying to make the construction industry be like the automotive industry or be like the aerospace industry. Like Suresh said, you know, it is unique. Like you have to leverage what great things have been done in the past. Just learn from those other industries and use it to drive towards improvement.
Okay, I'm gonna just go right back to it. So I'm gonna ask a similar but different question, and that's really interesting answer. And maybe look at different lenses. So you're trying to build products, right, that can go into various configured buildings and stuff like that. How do you think this productization impacts the different stakeholders? So like maybe your customer, you know, maybe it's the developer, maybe it's the GC, you know, specialty contractors, maybe it's your supply chain. How does this productization kind of impact those different stakeholders from your perspective?
Yeah, I think that you know, there can be a first glance sort of view that productization or offsite manufacturing or any of these topics that we're discussing, you know, leads to either artistic form not being able to be expressed. It leads to, you know, somehow the business is not going to be able to be like it was. The product quality is not the same. And I think that it's, you know, actually the opposite. You know, the productization and shifting towards a lot of the ideas of manufacturing can enable highest quality. It can absolutely drive better business outcomes. And I think that all of the stakeholders have to understand that, you know, that transformation is going to start with, you know, probably some adjustments to how people work. You know, new definitions of business processes. You know, folks might have to interact with different parties earlier in the process. That the business methods and the way that design happens will change, but that doesn't mean that, you know, the outcomes of the, you know, the buildings, the projects that are being constructed are going to be any different. So I think that there's always going to be some amount of resistance to the change that happens when, you know, these types of endeavors are undertaken. But really, you know, showing examples of how it makes, you know, what's in it for me sort of views, what's in it for them, of how it could be more positive. You know, our buildings built in a factory, but we can, you know, build 80% of the similar buildings in Seattle with our system, right? You know, there's a huge range of opportunity with this productization. It just, you know, it's going to take a while for people to adjust their ways of working to this new method.
That's great. One thing I'll go to you, Neil. As an architect, I know I've heard this before. I'm sure you've heard this before, that people think that you do have to trade off beauty and architectural, you know, freedom to modularize or to, you know, productize the offering. which I definitely have seen your talk about your project later and your first project, but definitely not the case there. It's a pretty, you have a design powerhouse behind you guys there, but maybe can you talk a bit about that, and that business model? So bringing that, doing beautifully designed buildings, but in an efficient way, and maybe that unique business model that Nabr has, that you talked about a little bit at the beginning. You can talk about like the big vision there, and maybe some challenges that you're facing as an innovator to deliver some of these scalable real estate products. Like I know you elaborated some things you're bumping into that you just never would have planned because of this unique business model. Maybe can you talk a bit about those things?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I think the way I'd start that answer is to talk about impact a little bit. I'm super excited to be able to think about our work in terms of impact. When we look at the goals of the Paris Accord or any sustainability kind of longer term goals that we have as a society, and the role of buildings and the built environment in achieving these goals are really, really big. And when you think about a gigaton, right, you look at the goals of the kind of embodied and operational carbon reductions that we have to achieve in the built environment in order to achieve gigaton impact. I've spent a little time recently doing the math on what is a gigaton, how big is that, and like what do we have to do to have gigaton reduction? And it's really major. It's really takes really big thinking. And I think productization offers an opportunity to think big in that way for our industry. So I think that's really exciting. And not only about the environment, but about housing for us as an issue for society, right? There's huge demand in all markets for housing. There's a big, I think, an increasing demand for density in housing. So living in cities, which is what we're focused on, and delivering that as a product to a consumer base. So some of the challenges with that is like, how do you tackle the carbon reduction problem, for example? How do you drill down far enough into the process to actually understand on a project by project level what the actual embodied, I'm not talking like benchmarks that we can use out of somebody's kind of prepackaged software. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but what's the actual impact of what we're doing? What do we need to do on that scale in order to have a measurable impact? And then also to think about the value that has in the marketplace for a consumer, right? If we can deliver a home for somebody and that consumer knows that the embodied or operational carbon of that home is significantly lower than some other home that they would buy, that's a value for our product, right? That's not just like a responsibility, which it is. We in our roles in our industry, I think, are responsible for thinking about impact in that way, but it's also a business value, right? If we can deliver a product that's got an immutable sort of record of the embodied carbon of everything in your home down to the nut and bolt, all the way to the consumer, so the consumer has a record of that footprint, we really think that's a product value, right? So but that's really hard to tackle, right? There's not a lot of standardized ways to measure. We have EPDs and these kind of things coming from manufacturers, but we're really trying to find a way to track this on a project basis. So that's really exciting, I think, to think about how we can, what we can do to impact. So then once we understand that on kind of a product, let's say we start with facades, we can figure out the actual embodied carbon of a facade. And then we start thinking about the business model of Nabr, right? Where we're thinking about entering into multiple markets at a run rate of units, right? So we're trying to deliver X number of units in X number of markets by a certain date, just like any startup does, right? Like a startup's like thinking about the kind of hockey stick trajectory of your growth. What does that actually mean in terms of impact, and what do we have to do to get to impact that scale? So capital is hungry for this. If you're out in the world of raising money, which we are, And every startup is, right. People want to talk about these things. Like your product is not only has a potential for providing returns, but providing returns with impact, right? So there's a lot of, and you read about ESG funds and people, there's a lot of investment into this part of the industry right now. And being able to think about things like in that way, I think is part of the productization paradigm. And then I think also in changing what our definition, your question was about beauty in architecture and having to sacrifice that. I think a little bit of it is about changing what we're shooting for, right? It's not so much about beauty as it is about delivering. You can buy a car that's incredibly like, the inside of a Tesla or of a BMW or something is incredibly, it cocoons you, and you have this experience in the air and the temperature and the massage and all this kind of stuff. And then you go to your home, and it's a box, and it's where I'm sitting right now. It's kind of too cold, and I'm in New York, and the radiators are clanking and all this kind of stuff. It's a radically different experience. So delivering a better product, a better housing product to people, as a business that has impact, I think is about thinking about things in terms of products for us.
That's great. So what I hear is almost like the built environment's going through their traceability 2.0. So Adam, in his past life, traceability is a thing that's been around for a long time, but you're selling, business to business. Now all of a sudden you have buyers that care, right? You have the end consumer that actually cares where these materials came from and these products came from and what the impact of those things are. And, they vote with their dollars. So I think it's a big challenge for us. That's actually a great way to put it. I haven't thought of it that way. It's fantastic. Suresh, we talk a lot about simulation. I know you guys are trying to really push the envelope and think about how simulation can help, optimize your process and optimize your data centers. Like, what do you think the role is of simulation in construction and helping drive efficiencies?
Yeah, it's a huge, right? I think, but I still think we're looking out for that mass market, I would call it like the magical, simulation tool. Because there are a bunch of tools, and we have some great partners who are working with us, helping us. But I still think the amount of innovation we have seen in the consumer space, like AR, VR, I think that is something that's badly needed in this world of construction. When we do these digital reviews, like constructability reviews, right? To make a tool that's for the masses, right? Where people can just use it, because you have people coming from wide spectrums and wide disciplines, right? And so that is a challenge, but I do also see that also creates a huge opportunity, right? To kind of have a tool that can do not just design for manufacturing, but even design for assembly, right? Like choreographing the sequence of how the trades and disciplines come together, where the GCs and AEs, along with the owners, work in concert digitally. I think that is a huge opportunity, right? That I can see that's badly needed in the industry, right? So I think I would say that definitely sticks out for me, as a huge opportunity.
I agree. Accessibility component's always been a tough one, right? You have all these stakeholders, different levels of technical chops, and something that's a bit more accessible. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so we got a couple more pre-canned questions, and luckily we have lots of questions in the Q&A, so I want to jump into that. Neil, it's your final pre-canned question. I'll ask the same thing to you that I kind of asked to Adam earlier. Let's look at your first kind of announced project, and what does productization mean for you guys at Nabr? And maybe you can share a bit about your recently launched first project in San Jose. Give us a feel for it.
Yeah, so we are, we're launching what we're calling an MVP, like a minimum viable product, but it's building. And it's a 20-story condo building, 138 units. We're targeting kind of the mid-market. It's in San Jose, right? So we're going to market with something that is responding to the demand of that market, right? So we launched our website recently. We're seeing, we're taking reservations. We're seeing a lot of demand in the market. We've done a lot of market research about what users interesting market research into what users think about architecture. Like if you talk to people and they're buying a condo, how much does the architecture matter? And a bunch of architects designing a business, it can be kind of shocking to learn. But yeah, we're going to market. So the building itself is a CLT. It's got a CLT superstructure. The core of the building is cast in place. It was difficult to achieve a CLT core in a seismic zone. Getting pretty geeky, but we had trouble making that work. It's going to be clad in a mega panel, what we call a mega panel system. So we're going to be manufacturing large sections of the facade off-site, up to 12 feet tall by 28 to 34 feet wide, using the tower crane to set them into place on a very fast cycle, and really trying to reduce the construction time on site with as much off-site fabrication as we can. Every unit has a balcony right now, or most units have a balcony. So outdoor space, kind of in response to the pandemic. So I live in the city. I don't have a balcony. I really wish I did. During the pandemic, being stuck in here with my kids doing at-home school, wish we had a little outdoor space. So that's seen as a priority for us, and is part of our model. So I can share screen one, and then I have.
Wrong page.
Sorry, there we go. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, you just put it full screen there. Yeah. All right.
So this is so we when we think about optimizing process, just this is our site in San Jose. We're working with CAD makers using the CM Builder platform to play out some scenarios about construction speed. We've determined that we think we understand the value of time first and foremost. A month of savings on site has X value to us as a development. So investing in systems to speed up time becomes kind of or not speed up time, but to speed up the process becomes kind of an investment thesis in a way. Like if we put more money into offsite fabrication of certain components, we can yield X amount of savings on site. So real quickly playing out, 3 different scenarios for the construction of our first building, whereas on the left, we're proceeding with a cast in place core that's followed by a CLT structure that's followed by a traditional unitized curtain wall system. And the critical path on the left is really the core, right? Everything is following how long it takes to build that cast in place core on a floor by floor basis. The one in the middle, I'm not talking fast enough. The one in the middle is a little bit faster in the route. I guess if I probably can just rewind a little bit here. The one in the middle is this idea, and this is, I think Javier and team at CAD Makers have worked on other projects using this approach where you run the cast in place core all the way to the top. And what that allows then is the pre-manufactured components of the building, being the CLT structures, the facades, and the balconies, to move up at their own speed, right? So it consolidates the kind of intensive site labor in one phase, and then the offsite construction pieces come together, getting up to a building that's closed up a little bit sooner. And the one on the far right, which I'm again not talking fast enough, is utilizing a steel brace frame core in the center, so that basically the entire building is more or less manufactured as a kit of parts and put together on site. Now, the steel prices these days are making scenario 3 a little bit unrealistic for us, right? The cost of that steel brace frame core doesn't yield the benefit that we need to warrant the extra cost, right? So we start looking at scenario 2 as something that's more feasible. So running these, this is, I think a plug for our friends at CAD Makers. Running these scenarios is very quick. We can, work with our design team to generate a model, work on 3 different quick ideas about schedule scenarios. This is like 4 days worth of work, right? What if we did this? What if we did with this? What if we did this? Work with Javier and team on quickly evaluating those opportunities and seeing what the benefit is and making a decision to move forward. I think we look at a lot of the ways that we can improve is just making better decisions, right? How can we get tools in front of ourselves and data, because it's very complex. These construction schedules are 5,000 lines long, and there's a gazillion dependencies in there and kind of contingencies baked in. How can we get tools in front of our people to make better decisions in a real-time basis? All of us are in meetings back to back all day long, every day, right? So how do we make better decisions in those meetings? So we utilize some of these visualization and scenario building tools to get in front of our team so that we can get aligned and make better decisions as a group.
That's great. And as anyone can see, not much compromise on architectural flair. I mean, it's a pretty cool looking building architecturally with still being able to leverage these kinds of productization approaches, and great use case for simulation, right? You got 3 different options, you got steel prices floating, means the different means and methods, like fantastic use case to use simulation to drive the best possible outcome and collaborate with supply chain partners. It's fantastic.
And people kind of, just one last comment, like people don't believe you until you show them. Right? Like, so some of this is about winning hearts and minds, right? Like getting the whole team to see something and getting everybody behind it, so the tools are really great for that.
Oh, totally. Okay, last pre-canned question, Adam. I know that you guys have a little bit of a unique strategy there with your kit of parts. Maybe you can share a bit of what you've been working at Sidewalk Labs for the last year plus, and maybe how your kit of parts system kind of works as well.
Sure thing. So the Sidewalk canopy buildings kit of parts, we focus on the structural elements, beams and columns, the floor cassettes, and then facades and interior walls. We've had a lot of focus on building very data-driven, we call them proto models, full designs of our kit of parts manifested in example building. And you may have seen some of those on our website. For example, I can show you one here called PMX 15. So this is PMX 15, proto model 15-story building that the Sidewalk team, along with our design build partners, have built out to a full, very detailed level digitally. And so this building, you can see as I step through in CM Builder here, the various steps of the construction process. You see our first mass timber columns come into place, some interior other additional components, structural components, and then floor cassettes start to appear, and we build the building up step by step. One thing that I've really found, like Neil said about visualization and showing people, is that in addition to having a shared understanding of what it looks like for our parts to be in a building, is that we're actually also creating the first steps of a digital thread back to that design here. Even though this is really a visualization tool, we're still relying on those original models. So for example, this floor cassette that I've highlighted, when I go here in CM Builder and show it, it actually is, it's a representation of the CAD model that is built in CATIA in the CAD system, which is also derived directly through automation tools from the design model in Revit. So like even though we're in a visualization world here and we're simulating and trying to understand, we're doing that in a way that is building that digital thread and instrumenting our business processes with data that we can collect and share.
Great. Yeah, it's a very cool system to be able to build with cassettes and optionality for pods and other prefabricated things to fit into that system. It's very flexible. It's very, very cool. Thanks for sharing. Okay, I'm going to jump into the Q&A. First questions for Suresh coming from Time at Skanska. Time is the champion of mass timber all over the world. People know him, and he has a question for you, Suresh. Where do you see the future of mass timber in data centers? Is that something you've ever looked at?
I would say you never say never. I think you have to factor in elements of reliability, the availability of data centers, and also maturity of the specific technology that can be available at scale, right? To kind of do this as a trade-off, right? But I think mass timber presents a fascinating opportunity. So I think we definitely will keep our eyes and ears open, right? So.
Okay, fantastic. Another question, I guess this is a very interesting one from Jim Renzema. I know he has a lot of experience with entitlements. How does so this is for Neil, how does the entitlement process work when you're letting customers design their homes? Where are the limits to what customers can change? Are there numerous city challenges on getting products with flexibility approved?
I just noticed that my video is not working. Can you guys see me? Or?
No, we lost you. But
you can hear me.
We can hear you. We lost the video.
well, sorry about that. I don't know.
No,
my
right.
camera quit. But yeah, I can address that question. So, so we aren't. Our current model isn't allowing the level of customization that would affect our entitlement process, right? So we're able to entitle the building, and in the level of customization that happens within a particular customer experience is post entitlement, right? So it doesn't pose any bottlenecks there. It's a really interesting question, but right now that's the way we've got it. The cycle time between when you would customize your unit and when we can deliver the product is still too long to afford a customization that would affect entitlement and then construction, right? You'd have to wait forever if we did it that way. So as long as we don't want our customers to wait 2 years to get their apartment, we're not going to be able to customize to that level until we can somehow compress that process. There's some interesting discussions happening between Nabr and municipalities who are interested in how we're addressing housing demand, which is an issue for government. It's an issue for local governments. You look at the San Jose market, people can't live there, right? It's like in New York City. Like the people that work in New York City, for the most part, don't live in New York City, right? And that's a problem that governments are very interested in. So therefore, they're interested in working with us to streamline the entitlement process. So we're having discussions with municipalities about that very topic.
Okay, all right, great, thank you. These are like amazing questions. I know we have 7 minutes left. Maybe we can go a little over, but this was we'll start with Adam. Anyone can answer if you want, but why don't you take this one, Adam? This is from Nathan at Darwin. Hey, Nathan. How much research has everyone performed to ensure that gross buildable area is not restricted by your systems? My experience is that this is a major restriction for offsite systems. Construction savings, whether in schedule or cost, does not make up for the lost square footage when developers initially run performance on maximizing square footage. Softball question for you. Just kidding.
we in all of our throughput models and everything that we use to go and figure out the constituent components of our parts, we use the gross construction area as a key driver metric. We don't just count on the area of the floor cassette that we're making in the factory. We're actually targeting the production towards a building. And in our system, with the beam and column and the cassette, the way that it's engineered, we're not seeing any major loss there. I'm sure there's always opportunity to improve, and of course that's going to be the big value driver for the folks that are investing in a building is, what can they do with that space? But we're definitely not seeing big issues with our system in that number. However, I'd say the thing that is most important takeaway for me being new to the industry is just driving that value, to the early stage of our design process. It's not something that we want to try to figure out how to address at the end. So that's what we've been doing as I mentioned, everything, including our factory modeling.
Okay, that's great. Anyone else want to take that one? Neil, I guess for residential and the spans you can get with that system, you probably more or less covered, or do you ever run into an issue where your performer doesn't line up with the, the buildable area you're able to create with your system?
It is an interesting question. I think the way we approach that is again on a product basis more than a project basis in thinking about the benefit of a kit of parts and of systematizing to our overall business plan relative to the constraints of systematizing for an individual pro forma is again kind of a you have to look at both, right? So if by using a mass timber system we can only achieve a certain unit mix in a building, that is a constraint on the pro forma, but it also has value in other ways to our product in the long haul. So yeah, I mean, just to be simple, I think that whenever you use a kind of kit of parts, it's almost by definition you've decided on a certain kind of set of solutions that are going to limit what you can actually do with that product. So, but it's a big balancing act. It's not just about like one project's pro forma. It's about same thing with Sidewalk, I'm sure, right? It's like, you're trying to build a scale, right, for a lot of buildings.
That's great, thank you. Suresh, I was wondering, Nate Bergen, hi Nate, good question. I know, and I think we've talked a little bit about this in the past. So you built, the next gen data center. At what point in the design process are you engaging with a builder, right? And how much do you rely on builders to assist with the constructability, with connection details and sequencing, stuff like that?
Yeah, no, I think as more and more we are shifting not just the product launch processes, but we're also launching the project readiness aspects to the left, like with an integrated model, right? Some of these concepts like IPTD and IPTC have been around, but I think we're taking a deliberate approach of really trying to see how we can draw blow the lines and move the partners to engage a lot more to the left, especially when we're doing things like design for assembly for some of the equipment and how it goes from the factory to the field, right? So we're trying to break the barrier between the factory and the field, right? So that basically would allow for reduced on-site work and more accurate, work, and also it'll speed up the whole process by when the equipment gets stood up at the site, right? Which is where the rubber meets the road, right? So more and more we're working towards that model, right? We're not there, but we're definitely working pretty aggressively to reach that goal, right? So
that's great, thank you. We just squeeze a few more in here. Derek Schick from our team. Hi, Derek. Sounds like a great opportunity for closing the circularity gap. Is circularity being considered as part of Nabr's approach, Neil? Oh, I think
I somehow found my video again.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it was your fancy background there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll take the blame on that one.
Yeah, circularity is on the agenda for sure. End of life. So some of the really big ways that we're thinking about that are, if there was a way to tokenize the system, a building system, so that it had value at the end of its life, so that there was some incentive to recycle it, is one. I mean, that's like really like technology that's sort of out of my wheelhouse, and my colleagues can speak to more eloquently. But we're thinking really big about that item is how is there value in the end of life of a building, aside from just demolishing it? What would compel somebody to go back and say, I want this piece of CLT and I'm going to take it and use it somewhere else? It's a lot to ask if there's not somehow an embedded value in there. So that's I guess broadly one big idea that we're thinking about.
Yeah, the design for disassembly. I know that came up a little bit in the Rock Commons project, where no one's going to do it, but in theory, you could like take the connection apart and like take the column and stress test them and use it again.
You can, but why? Like, I think the question is,
you?
how would you compel somebody to actually do that, right? Like,
Yeah,
we can design it so like how do we brainstorm as an industry about actually having value at the end of life there for somebody to recycle it. It's a really interesting problem. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we are at time. I think. I mean, we've got tons of questions here, but I think we handled some good ones. I want to be very careful with your time. You're all obviously very busy. Thank you so much for taking the time to join this. And it was just really inspiring to see what you guys are doing. And I think we all learned a little something today, and hopefully sparks some ideas of how we can build on top of it, right? Open source some of this and say, okay, how do we take it and make things better? And because the construction industry definitely could use some little innovation, thanks to folks like yourselves. So yeah, I will hang out for a little bit just to stay on so it doesn't go abrupt, but you're welcome to jump off. And I just want to say thank you very much for taking the time.
Thanks, Avi. Thanks for the team too, Adam. Nice meeting you. Thank you.
It was nice to meet you guys. Adam, nice to see you again. Javier, thanks for the invitation.
You're looking different without that beard. You got rid of the beard from last week.
It's still there. It's just I'm a little maybe more well groomed than I was last time you saw me.
There you go. Okay.
It was a busy week last week. Yeah. All right.
That's great.
Yes,
okay. Bye, guys.
Thanks
so much. Appreciate that.